and rolling here. So basically how this is going to work, prior to introducing you guys, I just want to go through the landscape of what we're going to do here. We'll run through a series of questions, kind of go around. Each of us will kind of get our own take at it, and then we'll kind of have conversation from there. And at the end of our presentation here tonight, those that are viewing, those guys that are on the call, thank you for coming on. I'm going to ask that you, if you have any questions, save them to the end, write them in the chat, and then we'll do our very best to answer those questions that you have. And if you think of anything afterward, just reach out to me. I'll provide you with the contact information for each and every one of the guys that we have here on our panel. Feel free to reach out to us about whatever you'd like. But we got a really good group here tonight. You guys all know I love speaking with you. I love running into you on the road. I love running into you at every event that we kind of see each other at. And I feel like every time I talk to you, I get better myself. So I just want to go ahead and introduce myself real quick. My name is Matt Marsh. I'm an assistant baseball coach up here at University of Maine. Many of you guys have come up to University of Maine to work some of our events as well too. So it's good to have you here on the podcast tonight. So I'm going to start with, we'll just go around right now. Quick introduction. Buck, you want to start us?
Yes, sir. First off, Marsh, thanks for having us on. My name is Sean Buchanan. I'm the assistant baseball coach and recruiting coordinator at Albright College in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Awesome. Thank you, Bucky. Doc, what do you got? Give us your intro.
Yeah, Marsh, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Love getting together with you guys. My name is Doc Neiman, and I'm the head baseball coach at Clarion University in Clarion, Pennsylvania, in western Pennsylvania, just north of Pittsburgh.
Awesome. Taylor.
Guys, Taylor Davis, Bridgewater College. I coach hitters and outfielders. First off, thanks again, Maddie, for putting this all together. I'm definitely excited to see you boys and learn something. And Bridgewater is located in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia.
Awesome. And Nikki.
Yeah, Marsh, appreciate it, man. This will be a fun experience for us all. So my name's Nick Love. I'm the assistant baseball coach. I work with hitters and infielders at Paul D. Camp Community College, located in Franklin, Virginia, which is on the southeast part of Virginia.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you guys for coming on. And one of the things that I love about this group and I love about, meeting with every one of you guys is you guys are, in general and individually always looking to grow. Every time, as I said before, every time I run into you, we just dive right into conversation and we both get better from it. So, that's what I'm really looking for tonight. So I want to, just start by saying, that I admire what you guys do. And I couldn't be more excited. I can't say that enough to have you guys on. So first question of the night is, now I know that, you guys have had different roles on staffs. You've worked in multiple staffs and worked really hard. And I'm interested to hear some of the things that you've done with a lot of resources, with different resources and ways that you got creative. So I think there's going to be a lot of information for our younger players, older players, different audiences here tonight. But first question is, what are some of the ways in which you educate your players on the game? And these are meant to be broad questions because I know that you guys have a lot of different answers for this. So, Buck, you want to start us? What are some of the ways in which you as a coach educate your players on the game of baseball?
Yeah, so I think it really starts with educating yourself as a coach and being that conduit, being the guy who kind of is the go-between between the baseball information and the players. They're the ones, players are going to be the ones who look to us for the answers. And none of us have all of the answers, but we definitely know where to look. There's 5 guys on this panel that I bounce ideas off of any day. So when it comes to finding information for our guys, I think it really starts with self-education, so that we can relay information to our players and we can be a great resource for them, as well as pointing them in the right direction as to where they can find their own answers.
I love that. I love that. I mean, I've always been a fan of the viewpoint of exactly that. You can only benefit your players as much as you benefit yourself, and how much you learn, you can teach your players. So that's awesome. Thanks, Buck. Great answer to kick things off. Taylor, what do you got on this?
Well, building on what Bucky said there, I was listening to a podcast with Darren Everson a couple weeks ago, and he said, he had a great quote. He said, find multiple ways to say the same thing. And that, to me, that hit home with what Buck's trying to say. The more educated you are with what you're trying to do, the more ways you can say the same thing and connect with the different kids you're coaching. Because, all you guys coach hitters. So, some guys you got to tell to swing up, some you got to tell to swing down. It's literally, I work with 21 guys, and all of them are different in their own ways. But I think, the biggest thing for me is just I think the structure you give your guys in practice, is obviously the biggest, the biggest way to get across your message. But I also think there's a lot of value in the in-game or in inter-squad, just conversations. I remember I looked at this question and took some notes down, and I remember in inter-squad this fall, I was sitting there talking to a couple of our guys, and our pitching guy was calling the game. And I looked to a guy, I said, the pitcher picked off, and I looked to the guy, the freshman sitting next to me, and he was like, I said, here comes a breaking ball. And he's like, how'd you know that, coach? The next one spiked. I said, well, a lot of times coaches will pick before they throw a breaking ball. And I just think that inter-squad, in-game, just like anything else, failure or right in the heat of the moment is a lot of times when the toughest lessons are learned. So in that controlled environment, to me is the best time to just have a conversation and just being around the guys. And obviously the Twitter's a great avenue to go as well. But I like just the conversations like that, whether it's in practice or game-like settings for me.
Oh, we're starting off hot, and I love it. There's some great content already. I mean, it's you've said that to me before in the past. I know some of the time when we're sitting there at St. Joe's on one of those many days, and when you were up here, we talked about how language could be so different for so many different hitters, for so many different pitchers, whatever it might be, that something might mean something different to another guy, and it might help them. So if you want to say, stay inside the ball, keep your barrel tight, whatever way you want to go about it, it could even contradict itself. I love that idea. That was awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Doc, you want to weigh in here? Doc, are you there? Think he might be frozen. Nikki, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. And this is kind of going to piggyback a little bit off of what Coach Davis said. I think for me, dialogue's been the biggest thing. Just kind of creating that avenue for guys to, and not necessarily where it's in a practice setting in general, to where we're already, telling these guys, look, during a bunt coverage, this is where you're supposed to be, this is what you're doing. But kind of like what Moose said, to where it's during a inter squad, or whether it's just mixing it up in the cages with the guys, talking about different things, different scenarios. And for me, the biggest thing is kind of being that that presence for guys to be open enough to come to you, even if it's something that you may think is just off the wall and dumb. Mm-hmm. But just kind of being that presence that guys are like, look, I can talk to him about this, and we can mix it up, talk different things. That's been the biggest thing for me. And I think it's gotten a little bit tougher once responsibility on the coach expands. That kind of gets a little bit more difficult, just because rather than overseeing a few guys or, being more specific, especially with the smaller staff that we've had, it's something that I've had to be more intentional with this past year than I have in years past. But yeah, just kind of being able to, and that's where I think guys learn the most, when it's just a few guys, whether it's when we're on the turf, working in smaller groups, then being able to talk about different things and being able to kind of share my opinion on it. And that kind of goes back to making sure you're educating yourself. And the one thing for me is being bold enough not to spew off something that may not be true as well. kind of checking yourself and just being like, I don't know that. I was like, I can get back to you and we can talk more about it. But as of now, I can't give you the right answer. But with that being said, I think a lot of it has to do with educating yourself, being prepared for those hard questions, being prepared for the easy ones, whatever it may be. But a little more specific with it, I think something that has kind of created that atmosphere for our guys and has really helped out a lot this year is having chalk talks and classroom sessions on PowerPoint and video where we're breaking down things before we do it. And that's something that I've always been interested in as a coach, and we got to put it to good use this year, to where rather than telling the guys on the field, hey, this is how we run the bunt coverage, or this is going to be our first and third play, we have it scripted out in a classroom session 10 minutes before we do it, to where all position players, pitchers are in that room. We get to show them, look, this is how it's going to be done. Now let's go perform it. And that's kind of based off of really a football mindset, to where you think of small group quarterback sessions where they're talking about different things and breaking down formations and defense. It doesn't really matter, whatever it may be football wise, but they would go do that and then go out to the field to perform it. So I think that's been super helpful and beneficial for our guys when it relates to that.
No, and that's something that we've done actually this fall is we started doing classroom sessions as well too. And I think it's been, a huge advantage. It's been hugely beneficial for our guys to see things, learn from other players, learn from each other, learn from us, and then enhance their learning environment in that way. To take it on the field, it's just, it sped things up a lot more when they see something on a screen or they see something in a classroom. So, no, I really love that. And for you players out there that are listening to this, those that are in the audience or might be looking at this recording later on, I think that my advice to you with this is to have conversations with each other. So the same concepts that Taylor's talking about, Nick's talking about, Sean's talking about as well too, we learn this information so we could share it with each other, and if you're talking to one of your teammates about hitting, you get better too. So I think that's a huge thing, and that should be a takeaway for you guys as players. Don't be afraid to talk to your players, talk to your teammates. Nick said it well too. Don't be afraid to admit that you don't know something. That's okay, because we're all here. We don't have all the answers, just like Sean said, and we're all looking for the answers. And the only way to find them is by talking to people and searching for it and learning from those that you're around. Awesome stuff. I love it. Anybody have anything to add before we move on to the next topic? I know Doc he just said he's having a little bit of technical difficulties. He'll be right back on with us shortly. But all right, we'll kick back. We'll get going with the second question of the night. Shawnee, you want to start us here? What is a creative or inexpensive way? And I'm excited about this question. There's a lot of creativity that comes with this that you've used to train a player. Now, this could be beneficial to coaches in the room here and players that may not have a lot of the resources that we have during this quarantine. Give me something good here, Shawnee.
Oh man, there's so much that I've done over the years to try and improvise, adapt, and overcome. But some of the things that I think you could probably go out and do today. I think everybody who is on this call or will be on any sort of Zoom call, you all have a cell phone, right? Everyone's got a cell phone, and that cell phone has a camera. And that cell phone camera is just as good as any camera you're going to find on the market for the most part. So you could either make your own little tripod, or you could go on Amazon and get one for real cheap. And there are apps that when you record, they will put your video on delay. So you can go ahead, you could take a swing. There'll be a 40-second delay so you can get yourself back in front of your own camera and you can watch your swing. And you can do that over and over and over and over. If you have an iPad, it works fantastic. Coaches, if you have an iPad, if you do that during batting practice, it's great. Have it on a 40-second, 45-second delay. Your guy who just was in the cage, he can come out and watch his round right after it happens, which is fantastic. But some other little hacks and stuff like that. You want to create your own weighted balls. And I remember when I was in Little League, I made a penny ball. I cut open a tennis ball. I got pennies out of the change jar that was in the coat closet by the front door, and then I duct taped it shut. And that was the 200-gram black driveline weighted ball before driveline existed. So there's all these kinds of little things out there that you can do. But those are two right off the top of my head that one that I use right now to this day, and one that I remember pretty fondly. And you can off of that to make your own set of plyo balls or anything else that you.
Bucky, I think we lost you there for a second.
You got me?
Yep.
Yeah, you're back.
I'm back. So where did you lose me there?
Just the last couple words there.
Yeah, I just said that if you get creative enough and you take ownership of your own training, that you could figure out whatever you need to get done. Identify what it is that you want. There, okay, here's what I want. Here's what I'm going to do. How do I get there?
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. Taylor, what do you got?
I was a little disappointed. I thought Buck was going to steal my answer for this one. But by far, the most creative we got last year was we were trying to we were both obsessed with the Baseball Rebellion Rebels rack.
No.
we didn't have the budget to get it.
Yeah.
So we're literally, and Doc will appreciate this, we were just foraging the upstairs batting cage at the sales, and finally we found this piece of lead pipe. And just like the connection drills you see with Blast or whoever with the PVC pipe, we use this piece of lead pipe, I guess, kind of in substitution of the Rebels rack, and it helped us out a lot because we were trying all sorts of different stuff to promote posture for our guys and kind of stand in their legs and staying centered, and this thing was just hitting back up against the wall, and it ended up working great. It was a big find for us, and it was really just a mad scientist situation. We were trying anything to make it work.
Awesome. Love it. Nikki.
Yeah, I guess I'm actually shocked neither one of them said it, but probably the biggest thing for me that's pretty cheap, I think it's, super useful, is PVC. The use of a PVC pipe, you go to Lowe's, that's what we did. We went to Lowe's, bought a bunch of them, cut them up, and I mean, that's the easiest way. Like Sean said, and we've had to, being at a junior college, you have to get a little creative with especially a new one. This is only our third year, so we were fortunate to inherit some weighted balls and buy a few, but at the same time, for hitters, we just weren't ready to drop the money on that. So we did do. I'll be honest, we took some really crappy baseballs, let them get rained on, and there's your overloaded balls. We talked to one of the ladies that works in advancement, and she had these squishy balls. I taped those up. Those were underloaded balls, wiffle balls, different things like that for underload. And I think, and another thing that has been really helpful, it was super inexpensive. This is more for a coach, but also any players in the room can use it as well. I wish there was a way for me to share the visual of it. I don't even know if I have it on my computer, but you can look it up. It's a lot of times there's like a paper that you can put in front of the plate. This is more for pitch recognition and guys understanding the zone. But we made a 9-ball. It actually had the baseballs. We screwed them into a piece of 2x4, or is it 2x6, and each baseball was labeled 0 through 9. And we use those in the cage religiously. Guys would have to point out numbers that they're hitting. We would pick certain zones that we're working on that day. And I mean, I think especially, and we didn't start using that until late January. And I really do think that our guys seemed to like it. They were taking them out on their own, using them. But I really think it kind of changed their approach as well. And, just internally understanding what pitches they want to hunt and what count. So Yeah, I mean, PVC is probably the biggest thing for me because it's super inexpensive. It's super useful, whether it's as a hitter, pitcher, honestly, just to stretch with. It's super, super useful.
Now, for those in the room, you younger guys that might not necessarily know what a PVC pipe is or what it might look like, if you look it up, what some of the uses for it is, you're talking about bat plane, you're talking about barrel awareness, you're talking about bat path, and it's a very inexpensive way for you guys to go take some dry swings and just create awareness of what you're trying to do, and then taking that into your regular swings right there. And that was awesome, Nick. Thank you so much. A couple things that I found on my end, just real cheap things, is you take a Sharpie marker, you take a baseball, and I know some people are talking about this a whole lot now. One of our guys brought it in after coming back from the Cape this past summer. You take a Sharpie marker, you color in around the baseball, and then you're just watching your ball backspin. You want to see that consistent rotation over and over, and that starts to create more of an awareness to how you're backspinning the baseball when you're throwing. You take that into your catch play, and then all of a sudden, baseball, especially on the defensive side, is ultimately just a game of throw and catch. So we're becoming more consistent with our throws, and we're getting more out of our throws. So that's a really easy way for you guys at home right now to start working on that. Couple other things that might be really easy or inexpensive. A lot of wall ball stuff. You can do that with infielders. You can do that with outfielders. Nick mentioned old baseballs. In addition to using that for weighted balls, we use them all the time here at Maine for just variability training for our infielders, for our outfielders, to create more bad hops and really focus on our infielders or our outfielders to use their feet to create a better hop and challenge them. So those are some things that are inexpensive. We've also taken some, and I know many of you guys have done this too. Taylor, you and I talked about this way back when, and Burke used to do this with our guys here at Maine. Is he would take some tape, and we didn't have it in our budget at the time to go get the the Axe weighted bat program. So we took some tape and we taped up the end of our bat. We taped up the barrel. We taped up the knob of the bat as well too. So we had a knob loaded bat, we had an end loaded bat, and we used that to try and put that into our variability training to start creating bat speed. So those are ways for you guys at home to start working on little things without even having to spend much money, or for coaches in the room that might not have the budget that a Power 5 school might have, where you got 15 different things to do all that stuff. Anybody have anything to add before we move on?
Yeah, you're right, Nick. I'm right with you on the PVC pipes there. We use PVC pipes every single day with our hitters, and I promise you that a 35-cent 5-foot piece of PVC pipe will make you a better hitter than any $400 bat on the market will. I guarantee you. It will make you a better hitter through your movement patterns and everything like that. So no reason not to have one. Home Depot's still open during quarantine, and it's like 35 cents. You can find that in your couch. Go get you some PVC pipe.
Can you guys hear me?
Doc's back. How you doing, Doc?
We're back. Hey, just to touch base on some of that stuff, Matt, you hit right on the head with the weighted bat stuff. That's one thing we do with our guys, just tape up an old wooden bat, work on the heavy bat stuff there. I'll go a little different route too, from a catching standpoint and an infield standpoint. We use tennis balls where we color the laces, similar to what you were talking about with the baseball. And we use that with our hitters as well. And they got to call out what color the seam of the tennis ball is. So we'll use like a black, blue, and red color the laces of the tennis ball. And they got to track it on top of home plate. That way they're seeing spin and seeing it to the plate. We use it with our catchers as well. So they can, maybe one colors represent a different kind of pitch, a breaking ball, change up, fastball, and they got to, work to get to the ball a little bit differently. So those are some other things you can use, tennis balls for around the house. Another simple thing too is like you mentioned with tape is getting your contact point down and put it on the ground, making a home plate on the ground or outside in your driveway or in your basement, and putting little areas where your contact pointers for inside, middle, and away, and taking dry swings. kind of seeing where your barrel's at in your stance. Okay, it's something that I used to do a lot. I used to get in front of a mirror and just do dry hacks, you know, looking in the mirror and finding my contact point. And that allowed me to kind of see how my base was as a hitter, where my hands were, where my contact was. And, you know, I think that's all just easy stuff that you can do. You don't need a bat. You just have your hands in, you know, a paper towel roll or anything like that that you can use to get your hands there. Any way to just get yourself better. And then like you guys said with the cell phone, videotape it. You know, that way it's not going to lie. It's right there for you guys. So definitely a lot of creativity you can have throughout the house.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned the mirror as well, too. The mirror is something that we do with our players at Maine. All of our hitters, before they step in the cage, they get themselves in the mirror and they go through their load and gather and, you know, just make sure that they're getting to their spot and getting there consistently and staying athletic. So that's something that we do with our guys, you know, pretty much every day. And, you know, that doesn't take going in down to an indoor facility to do that either. For those of you that are younger, you know, you can roll on into your bathroom and you don't even need a bat. You know, as Doc was saying, you know, go through your gather, get to your contact point, check it out. You know, you want to be your own best coach, and that's an opportunity for you to do that. We've touched a little bit on, from the technology standpoint, we've touched a little bit on, you know, using cameras and things of that sort. How are you guys using technology? And this is very general, so it could be in any direction: pitching, hitting, athleticism, whatever it might be. Give me one thing that you use technology to benefit one of your players. Taylor, you want to start us?
Yeah, I had, you know, video was my answer. We have two of the blast motion sensors as well. I didn't use them this year just because it was first year with the new staff, and I wasn't as educated as I need to be on them to make it effective. But I think the big thing for me, since we've already kind of gone down the video route, just, you know, any type of technology, whether you have, you know, a blast sensor, just a cell phone video, whatever. A lot of times, you know, as coaches, I think it can be scary for us. But the biggest thing for me, and Buck and I have had this conversation, you know, a lot of times that stuff supports what we're saying. Mm-hmm. And for the players, it supports what you're feeling a lot of times too. Okay, you know, that didn't feel right, so you can go back and look at the video and say, okay, yeah, well my hands are here, and they should be in a different spot at this point in my swing. Or, you know, with the blast sensor, you know, when I feel good, this is what my numbers say. And, you know, I got a poor connection at impact score. You know, and it felt bad. Well, no wonder. Here's the numbers to support it. And you know, especially with kids now, we're in a definitely you know, instant information, instant gratification age, and I think we can, as coaches, use those things to you know, kind of leverage our position as saying, hey, you know, this is what we need to work on here. If we can give them that type of support, that type of information right off the bat, I think that can really help us out with coaching kids now.
That's really good insight. Thank you, Taylor. Bucky, what do you got to build off of that?
Yeah, so we have blast motion here at Albright. We dove into it pretty heavily this year. I'm a huge fan of the blast sensor, and they've become pretty affordable at this point. They're not cheap by any means, but it can be done where you can get your hands on one and get yourself set up with a profile. With that, there's a lot of information that comes with it. So you need to understand what's important to you and to your swing. And that's kind of where I came in with our guys using blast motion, where I would outline, hey, these are the 5 metrics that we believe are important. Here's why they're important. Here's why we need to focus on them and what we can do to improve them. So blast motion has been great. We were lucky enough last year to work with Rapsodo. We're getting towards the upper echelons of the budget area there, so not everybody can get their hands on it. But video. We have weekly video meetings with all of our hitters at Albright. Invested in a GoPro so we could take the video to the next level. get some different vantage points and run around the field with it, which is another good option. You don't necessarily want to be standing out at shortstop trying to zoom in on a hitter with your cell phone. GoPro can make that a little more feasible for you. So definitely blast motion, video, and the machine. Let's not forget about the pitch machine. That is a piece of technology. If your program has one, there's a million uses for it, and it's not just for hitters. Outfield play, infield play, everything. There's a million ways to use the machine. So if your program has one, if you have access to one, make it your best friend. Saying that I don't hit well off the machine, or I don't like the machine. That's a cop-out in my mind. If you don't like hitting off the machine, it's because you're not good at it. If you're not good at it, it means you just need to get better, not that you need to stop doing it. So definitely the machine, video, blast motion, those are the three pillars of technology in our program.
Awesome. Thank you, Bucky. Doc, what do you got?
Yeah, just going off them, we pretty much do the same kind of stuff. We have a blast motion here. We track with our guys, not necessarily everything that the blast motion has to offer, but we track a couple things just to give them some data back. You can buy a cheap camera nowadays. I think we bought, ours for like $60 online with a memory card, and we film our hitters pretty much every day. When we do hit, we film our pitchers, and then we have the luxury of hooking that straight up into our TVs in our office, which is awesome for us. And we have the guys come in, like Buck said, have weekly reviews with those guys. Try to get them to have a notebook so they can take notes on it. And I'm big with that is, just touching on that is have those guys feedback what they're feeling and what they're seeing. That way it's not constantly a coach, myself, or another coach just constantly, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. What are you feeling? What are you seeing in this video? Because again, it's not going to lie. And like Coach Buck said, also the pitching machine, we have a hack attack, great for velocity, seeing spin. Again, that's probably one of the more advanced pitching machines out there, but there's some other good quality ones that you guys can get. If you're a coach on here, to help with velo and spin and everything like that. So pretty basic here. We don't go over and above, but that's kind of what we're blessed with right now, and that's what we use, and our guys seem to like it.
Awesome. Nikki, what do you got to weigh in here?
Yeah, kind of the same thing as everybody else. I mean, blast motion's been it's been something that I've used for a couple years now, and the way that we use it is a lot like Doc mentioned, to where our guys don't see everything. They kind of see what I think is important. But with that being said, we still track it. And Moose touched on this, to where it's like you've got to kind of find that balance between what's important, what's not, and kind of meet in the middle. And it's honestly what's important to you. It's not necessarily what's important for everyone. Everyone's going to have a different opinion on it, but we kind of figured out which metrics made sense for us to use. And but like I said, we do track everything through a Google Doc, and that's shared. That is going to be shared with each one of our players. Each one of them have their own profile on there, because, and y'all probably have run into the same problem. Obviously, through the Blast program, it's very difficult for each player to have their own, especially when it comes to finances. So we just kind of transport that information via Excel into a Google Doc or Google Sheets for each guy. Another thing that, and this kind of touches on the video piece, it's been really good for our guys, other coaches, because we are at a junior college, and myself included, is through the use of a Google Drive. Each player has their own folder to where we throw all their video in, and I think that's important even for the players on here, is kind of gathering all that to be able to look back and see as your swing changes, as your body changes, whether what it used to look like or what you want to try to get it back to. And that's kind of the important thing for me with Blast as well, is when throughout the first 2 weeks that we get guys on campus, I want to hook them up to Blast, basically just to get that baseline of where we're at. And also we really try to use it when guys are doing really well. when they're in game swinging really well, I want to get them hooked up to it, because as they start slumping, we have the slumping or something just not, it's just kind of off. We have something to kind of result back to. And that kind of falls in line with the video as well. But for us, it's been huge just to be able to get, to have access to and send out to other coaches. And then the other one for me that hasn't been mentioned is we use we do video occlusion with our hitters. And kind of, it's a pitch recognition. We do full pitch recognition with them as well. We set this up in my office. Sometimes they have a bat in their hand. Sometimes they're just sitting there watching, tracking the pitches. But you can find videos on YouTube. We set it up with a laptop hooked into a projector. And if you Google this, you can kind of get the basis of what it is. But basically, you're just watching a video of a pitcher pitching as the pitch is in ball flight, and you see the pitch, develop. It blanks the screen, and you have to kind of, a lot of times what I'll have guys do is just look at me and be like, that's a breaking ball, or that's a fastball. Other ways that we've used it is setting a tee up in front of a guy with a squish ball, because we are inside and we don't have a indoor hitting facility. But with a squish ball, it's enough room in there for guys to swing. Same concept, except for they decide whether they want to swing or not. So that's been pretty cool. We didn't use it a ton this year, but it was interesting to kind of play around with it, and I think it's very beneficial and definitely a place for it. But yeah,
Awesome.
well, our pitchers use diamond kinetics as well, but I don't really venture down that route. That's our pitching coach's thing.
Great insight, Nick. Great insight. And I love that, Doc, you mentioned, writing things down in a notebook. And this is, outside of technology, but I'm going to relate it back to technology as well, too. That, even I myself, like, I listen to you guys talk, and right now I have a Google Doc on my phone that's literally just for, we have these phones on us all the time, or as coaches, we're sitting in front of a laptop, one of the two, and I write down all these ideas. And I think for you guys that are players in the room, or you guys that are coaches, having that Google Doc that you could share with your players, or have them write down their feelings in their own language of what they're feeling when they're hitting, what they're feeling when they're taking ground balls. I think that's so beneficial. We have something that we're doing right now along those lines where our guys are going into Google Sheets and writing down, hey, I worked on this today. In my voluntary work, I did this. This is what I was thinking. And then we kind of go in and we comment and learn their language a little bit so we can relate a little bit better to those guys. This question for technology, for those that, have heard me get going on synergy, I think that I could stand in the mirror and talk to myself about synergy for 2 hours and not get bored. But it's something that really gets me excited. I really like it, but I'm going to kind of talk to it in two realms. I'm going to talk to it about synergy, and then I'm going to talk about it for those that don't have synergy and kind of using the same concepts. When we first got synergy, I got really excited because I was like, now we don't have to rely as much on the scouting reports of other people. We can write our own scouting reports, and we can watch as much film on the other team. But there's so many developmental benefits to having it. One thing that, I've done is, tracking data points. So, you want to teach something to your guys. One of the things that we did in our classroom this fall is we said we want all of our pitchers to be under a 1.35 or a 1.4, whatever it was, to the plate. When our guy was over a 1.4, based on what we looked at on synergy, we threw out 2% of runners. When we were under 1.4, we threw out 48% of runners. So pitchers, this is why we're doing what we're doing, and it allows so much more buy-in. But how could you do something like that outside? It's from what you guys are saying, and I totally agree, videoing your practices, understanding what happens the most and what we play. I looked at, for our outfielders, because I coached the outfielders this year and assisted with the hitters, I looked at, what types of plays were happening more often, because if we're going to practice something that happens 1% of the time all season, and we're going to practice that 70% of the time, then we're training inefficiently. So for you guys as players, I'd look at that as well too. Just start taking notice of the plays that happen more often. Those are the ones that you want to get really good at. In addition to that, we looked at that for the hitters. I think it was 38% of the pitches that we saw were fastballs away. So we were training that more than anything else. I think that you can look back at that on video as well too, and just say, hey, what pitches have I seen this weekend? Even if you just have a camera, or we all have our charts in the dugout that show, okay, this is how they've pitched you throughout the weekend, so we get a better understanding of what might be coming next, or where we're having success, what pitches we should be hitting, what pitches we should be taking, or what pitches are we not hitting and why are we not hitting them? And then it comes back into a teaching point when we get back into the cage and get back to work that next week. So synergy has been like the number one thing that I really love, but there's so many other ways to kind of get creative with it. I think for those that don't have it, to show some of those data points that we get. I mean, just basically just taking film, like you guys are saying, putting film into, it takes a lot more legwork, and that's what I had to do a lot my first year too. Cutting up the film, putting in an iMovie, throwing it in drives, but it means so much to the hitters. It means so much to the position players, the pitchers, and I think it benefits those guys a lot. And many, speaking of the cage, because I mentioned that already, many of our hitters, through lesson culture, their entire life, they've seen themselves on video. Many of the pitchers have seen themselves on video in lessons. Many of the catchers, infielders, outfielders might not have seen themselves on video ever, or have seen very little. So having that video background to show defensive stuff too, I think is hugely valuable. Anybody have anything to add before we go forward?
Yeah, I'll touch base on that too, Maddie. One thing you guys can use too, I see there's a lot of younger guys on here from Travel Ball, is there's an app on your phone called Coach's Eye. I don't know if any of you guys use it at all. Something that I like when I'm working with hitters, instead of just pulling up a regular video on your iPhone or whatever, I pull up Coach's Eye, and it actually breaks down frame by frame and goes slow-mo. And you can actually upgrade and you compare it to other hitters. You can find like a big league guy or one of your favorite hitters, whatever it may be, and put it side by side. And that way it kind of lets you compare both guys at the same time. So that's an easy free app on your phone, like I said. And then, Maddie, like you talked about just now, not only pitchers and catchers and hitters, but your infielders. So we have a turf football field that we use a lot for our practice when we're able to out here in Western PA. And we actually put the camera out on the football bleachers this year and videotaped our whole practices. That way it allowed our infielders to kind of see how they were on like double play feeds and if we were late getting to bags. So just another way that we expanded our practices this year, and then it was able for us to go back in and as coaches, reevaluate what we needed to break down with our position guys and not just our hitters and everything else.
I love that. And it's great for breaking down, but it's also, I think we found it very beneficial for showing guys when they're having success too. And Taylor, I remember you and I had a conversation about this a while back. This is something I stole from our hockey program because our good friend Colton St. Clair, volunteer assistant of the hockey, UMaine hockey team, was doing this. So I took this from him and living with him. Last year I started putting together highlight tapes of guys and basically showing them, hey, this is what you were doing when you're having success. And outside of visualizing each at bat, going into a weekend, it's easy for them to have reference points. So I feel like now when you're saying that defensively, I'm like, that makes so much sense. You can do that of really all types of things. If Buck's showing a catcher, something receiving wise, you have video of it. He's doing it well. He might not be repeating it. Now it's like, this is the difference here. And I love that. That's awesome. I'm going to shift gears here real quick. You guys are all readers, and I love it. Me too. But I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit here. This fall I was sending out, a page a day to our guys to try and get them to read. If I ask them to read a book, they might not read it, but they can definitely read a page. But give me some book recommendations for you guys. What's something that you're reading? What's something that's helped you as a coach that might help some coaches in the room, or might help some players that are just looking to grow? Shawnee, Buck, hit me.
Oh man,
You're the king of book reviews over there. So
yeah. I mean, I got a not so small library, both at my house and at the office. I guess I'll go back with a couple of books that I've read recently. Just finished up Swing Kings by Jared Diamond. Swing Kings by Jared Diamond.
I'm sorry, I said how was it?
Oh, how was it? It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Dives into not so much the swing itself and like behind the scenes stuff as it talks about the teachings of some of the prominent private hitting instructors out there, who they've worked with and how they believe that they got these guys better. There is some stuff in there that's pretty baseball specific, but some of it's gets into like the culture of the game and tradition versus, old school versus new school and stuff like that. Definitely a good one for the baseball fan if you want something baseball specific, but something that's not baseball specific, but I think it applies tremendously to our game is Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. Annie Duke is she's a World Series of Poker champion, educated at Penn, winds up taking her degree and her doctorate from Penn and becomes a professional poker player. And it's all about her decision-making process and how to make decisions when you don't have all the facts, and trying to help us separate what a good and bad decision is and separating it from the result. Just because you didn't get the result that you wanted doesn't mean that you made a bad decision. And that is something that applies so much to the game of baseball. It's ridiculous. I'm reading this and I'm just like, oh my God, this is like every decision I've ever made. She's talking to me directly, like as a player and as a coach. So Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, get your hands on that one for sure.
I love it. I love it. Taylor, what do you got for us?
Well, baseball specific, especially for coaches, High Scoring Baseball by Todd Williams is like a, did I take yours, Nick? It is just like a step-by-step guide to creating an offense and having an identity with your offense, and also being more goal-oriented than instead of just chasing a number on the scoreboard. Like I could speak an entire Zoom session about this book. It's awesome. But anyway, the gist of it is, Todd Williams at Valdosta State, their goals are score 7 runs a game, win the freebie war. What's the other one? 50% or better quality at bats and get a big inning, which is 3 or more runs. And they don't. Those are their goals on offense. So it's not we need to go win. It's we need to go to achieve these goals. And everybody's if you've been around football at all, you've seen those big charts with where you get a helmet sticker for getting each goal, and that it's kind of the same type mindset there. So for coaches, that's my coaching Bible, is High Scoring Baseball. And another one, I'm shocked Bucky didn't bring it up, but Old School versus New School, Eugene Bleecker is.
I had to let you have that. I had to let you have that one.
Thank you. That one's gold, and it just gives you, again, going back to what I first said on here, it's not like he's reinventing the game, but he gives you a whole dictionary full of ways to say the same things we've been talking about. So that's tremendous. And I actually just finished a book today, non-baseball, but it is coaching related, called Every Moment Matters. And that I'll check the author here because it's right at my feet. That is by John O'Sullivan. And anyway, it talks, we've kind of hinted about the importance of being able to have conversations with your guys and have those relationships, and because that's where those teaching moments come from. And this book is really centered around being relationship oriented when we coach. So those are the 3 big ones for me. Sorry for taking yours, Nick.
It's all right. You took one of mine as well too, and you should have, because you recommended Old School versus New School to me. So you can definitely have that one. Nikki, what do you got?
Well, like we already know, I was going to say Old School, or I was going to say High Scoring Baseball as well. And just to touch on it, it's an awesome book because, and I don't agree with everything in it, especially after coming back and reading it the second time. And I'll just kind of say that if there's a book that you enjoyed, read it a second time. take some time off and read it a second time, because I'm sure you'll have different views of it. But as a whole, that book is freaking awesome. It's like Moose said, it's like a Bible to kind of like what I believe in. But the one I was saying, it was something that Coach Spots, Taylor Davis's boss now, a book that he told me. He was like, look, this is a book you should get. It's something that you will be able to just kind of easily check in on with different things. But it's Ron Polk's baseball playbook. That's a really cool, it's not something that you're just going to want to read from front to back. But as a coach, it's really good to have, and very in depth on everything from holding your first team meeting to, traveling to, everything. It has everything in there. But I have a really good feeling the old school versus new school is going to probably end up being my favorite. I'm on chapter 6 right now, and that book's awesome. Moose got me reading that one. But basically, and for me with reading, I usually break them up into 3 sections. I don't always read a lot, and I need to get better at, especially here lately, at kind of narrowing it down. But I usually break them up into 3 sections to where it's just like pure enjoyment book, leadership book, and a baseball related book. So I guess my pure enjoyment book, if you've never read American Sniper, hop on that, because that book is awesome. Awesome. And then the kind of leadership book is called The Energy Bus. I'm sure most of y'all have heard of it, by John Gordon. It talks about a guy named George that's just kind of down on his luck, can't figure, he has a family, just doesn't feel like he's good enough, and he hops on this bus, and this lady takes him basically for the ride of his life. And it's a really cool book, easy read. Like, it's something that even somebody that doesn't, crush books very easily can get through in a week. But I mean, it's a really super book. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Doc, what do you got? What books have you been reading? What's something that you'd recommend that has helped you as a coach, as an educator?
Yeah, I'm similar. I mean, those are all great books, and I got my list going here, and I'm going to continue to build my library. I know Buck and I bounce books back, and he always recommends some over to me. I'm very similar like Nick. I kind of have my baseball book, my fun reading book, and then something that really helps me out as a coach. So one I just finished was The Power of a Positive Team. This is for the coaches out there. Outstanding book, another John Gordon book, like The Energy Bus. That book is highlighted front to back for me. And it really just, being a first-year head coach, our team talks a lot about culture and being positive and going forward and making these strides. That book just spoke to me really, really well, and something I would recommend for all coaches on this call right now. Again, an easy read, and you better get a highlighter, because that book is getting covered. A lot of good notes. I think I got about 5 pages of notes just from that book alone. So definitely, one that I recommend. Currently reading one that Buck recommend, the Performance Cortex. I actually got it right here. I'll show you guys the cover of it. A lot of science in it, Buck. Not a big science guy, a lot of big words. Okay, I got to read it a couple times. But a really good baseball book, and that's something that I haven't dove too far into it yet, so I don't got a lot. But I'm excited to read that. Buck recommended that to me a couple months ago, and finally getting around to it. But I'm excited for that. And then currently, I'm also reading a book called 13 Hours. It's what really happened in Benghazi over in Africa, with our soldiers and everything, and some guys over there. So a good book for me. I like some history stuff to throw in there every now and then. I love to read like these guys do. That's why we're bringing this up. So definitely a lot of good books out there. You can go on and, for some of these younger guys, just Google anything baseball related, motivational, and get your nose into a book. It definitely is something that I've picked up over the years, as these guys have as well.
Absolutely. And, I'll be quite honest with you. I think I've read more books, just in being around baseball, than I read before I was ever coaching. And that's if I'm sitting there and I'm 13 years old and truthfully, 13-year-old me thinks he's too cool to probably sit back and read a book. But there's so much value in it. Pat Casey said at the ABCA last year, and that really stuck with me. He said, books provide mentors that we might not ever have to meet, and if you guys really want to get better, you want to grow, you might not even necessarily have to meet these people in your life. They might not even still be living, but you can learn from the work that they've done and the research they've done or the experiences that they've had. And I think that there's so much value to that. And for coaches and definitely for myself, I mean, we talked about it right off the bat that we educate ourselves to try and educate our kids. So in being able to do that and being able to read, we're able to relay it to the kids, and to the people that we're working with. So for me, as far as like genres of things that I like, I love reading about baseball books. Augie Garrido's, Life is Yours to Win is definitely one of my favorites. New School versus Old School is one of my favorites. I like reading stories or books rather, that have at least chapters that have nothing to do with baseball. Because I think part of the fun of that is being able to relate that back into your teaching and relate that back in. And it helps with the analogies that help us learn throughout the game. I think that there's so much value in that. And that makes it more exciting, I think, for me as well, too. But I've been reading The Culture Code. I just finished that one up. Love that book. Excellent book. That's a book I would definitely recommend. And there's a lot of those types of stories that, things that were done in business, things that were done for a lot of successful individuals and how they were able to bring a team together, which is going to segue into my next question. So we're going to switch gears a little bit again. This group's kind of, got a lot of different things that we like to talk about. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things. So the next thing is, what are some ways that you've brought a team together? And this is beneficial to the coaches in the room here, but also to the players where, bringing your team together, being a leader on your team. Taylor, give me something that you've done to help bring your team together.
Well, I think we've kind of talked about it pretty much all night. I mean, and I've been in the situation the last 3 years going from George Mason to the sales now at Bridgewater, and I've had to kind of immerse myself into different cultures. And in this case, with myself and Coach Spots coming to Bridgewater, we're starting basically from the ground up. Not necessarily the same at Mason and the sales, because both those head coaches have been there for a while and had a really good foundation. But what we've talked about all night is just building relationships with guys. I think, Bucky will agree with this. Last year when we came into the sales, I mean, we had a good situation, a team that was arguably could have been a postseason team, had some talent, but we were still the new guys and we were still bringing a little bit different message. And, Buck and I were like Dale and Brendan from Step Brothers. The first day we get in the office and, we got all these ideas. We're the greatest coaches of all time, yada, yada, yada. And then when we get that deer in the headlights look, the first hitting group we have, it's like, these guys don't think we're that great. So maybe we ought to get to know them and show them we care and build a relationship before we, give them all our hitting knowledge. So the relationship piece is huge. You just got to get to know them. You got to put in the man hours and show them that you care. And after you do that, you can really do about anything. So I wish I could give you a more specific answer than that, but I think it really is just about putting the man hours in, and getting to know your guys and trying to do it in non-baseball related ways too. I think it's important. Like I live here on campus and I would love for the guys, to stop by, hang out on the porch for a little bit and just talk to them and see how class is going, who's dating who and all that stuff that comes, and it's a privilege to be in our position because you get to have those relationships with these guys on college campuses and it's such an important time in their life. But yeah, to me that's the biggest thing is the relationships and the man hours and just showing them that you care.
Absolutely. I love it. Doc, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a blessed situation out here. Obviously, my mentor was on here. I believe he jumped off, but Coach Williams, a good friend of mine, was on here a little bit before, and I inherited this team this past summer. With him moving on to a new job, and I got lucky to be a head coach out here at a growing institution and a very good conference. And one thing about our program here is this group is very, very close, and I learned that from day one when I got here last fall as an assistant. And, one thing that, I just learned from these guys is their love for each other. And I think that goes a long, long way. And I was actually just writing this note down from the Zoom call the other night from Coach Sheets and the dugout chatter with the UCLA and Alabama softball coach, if you guys were on there. And the Alabama softball coach was talking about, you got to, if there's a tight situation, your bases low to hit her up, you got to make sure that you're not showing them any fear or pressure. At the end of the day, you got to make sure that they know that we love those guys or those girls or whoever. The constant love and reminder that we have for these guys. Like Moose said, we're in fortunate situations to be doing what we're doing, coaching baseball at very good institutions. And developing, and I've developed younger kids too. And I think the more that you show them, one, what you're doing, and you have confidence in what you're doing. Two, the love you have for them, and that no matter what, if they mess up making a mental or a physical mistake, that it's okay, that you love them and you're going to teach them why we shouldn't maybe go down that road, or why that was a tough situation in that part. But I think the constant love that you can show guys, it goes a long way. One thing we do is we read a book over winter break. So going back to our reading, so this past year we read Make Your Bed. Okay, so it's a very easy book to read. I'm pretty sure most of you guys, coaches, probably have read it. And it's about Navy SEALs, and just accomplishing little tasks every single day. And how important that goes, and starts off with making your bed. So again, I'm questioning all these younger guys on here is how many of them actually make their bed in the morning before they get going. That's something that I do every single day, and I know that's my first task of the day, and I'm going forward. So we did that with our guys. They really seemed to enjoy it. They came back, and we kind of had like a discussion with it. They got to pick out a quote or a line in it, what they liked about it. So that's something we do. And then obviously on a baseball side of things, everyone's familiar with the Omaha Challenge. We call it the Golden Eagle Challenge out here. We're the Golden Eagles at Clarion. So we split our guys into about 4 or 5 teams, depending how many we have. And, they get a 4 or 5 day events that we push them through, obstacle courses, team building events, stuff like that. So the constant connection, like I said, the love that these guys have for each other and the love as coaches that we have to show them goes a long way.
I love it, Doc. Love it. Bucky.
So for me, I think the one thing that brings all teams together is trust. So in an effort to bring a team together, we have to build trust, because I firmly believe that nothing good is ever going to happen without it. Like it is the building block of a team, and the foundation of trust is honesty. So if you are honest with your players, but you're honest in a constructive way, where you're just providing them realness and not so much anger or anything like that if something goes wrong or something's not done right, and they see that honesty, and so they trust what's coming out of your mouth, that you're not providing them with anything that's false. They just know that, hey, what coach is saying, it's the truth. It's what's real. And then that empowers the players to have that same trust and realness amongst each other. One thing I say to guys all the time is that I see better than I hear. Now that's not a medical fact or condition or anything like that I have, but it's, you could tell me that you're something until you're blue in the face. I don't believe you until I see it. And we had a guy in the batting cage during our first couple of weeks of practice, live ABs. He punches out and he throws his bat. I'm like, are you going to do that in a game? No, coach, I wouldn't do that in a game. I don't believe you. I literally don't believe you. He's like, oh, what do I got to do? Like, to make you believe me? Show me. You got to be about that action, boss. And that's what trust is built upon. And when we're showing each other that we have each other's back, you trust each other. You know, you're not worried about if someone's stealing something out of my locker or someone trying to take my girlfriend or something like that. We can come together. We don't have to worry about what's behind us. We can focus on the task in front of us. And building trust and honesty is what I think brings teams together.
Love it. A lot of great stuff right there. A lot of great stuff. Nikki, bring us home. What do you got?
Yeah, I'll just say repeat everything that Buck just said. And that's been something that I'll be honest, it's adapted throughout this year. You know, coming in as a first-year hitting coach with this program, it was to where I wanted to make sure the guys knew, okay, we don't have, and Moose touched on this a second ago, to where you want to make a presence where you're like, I know this, I know that, and not even necessarily by saying it. But I guess for me, it was take a step back and just show them that you're going to be here first. Show them that, kind of let them come to you rather than you coming to them, was the biggest thing for me, to learn and kind of adapt to, rather than, I guess, forcing it, because it's organically going to happen if you let it. But another thing, and this kind of results more towards the team aspect of it, is the biggest team building thing for us is having a leadership council. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing, because it takes in every single organizational structure that we have, and it allows our guys to have ownership over it. We meet with those guys at least every other week, and I think as soon as that got implemented in the fall, because we had to wait a little bit to figure out who we wanted to be on it, because this was both myself and the head coach's first year. But as soon as we implemented that, I think really things started to change. And to add to that is community service. I think being able to give ourselves to others and help out is the biggest thing. And one of the biggest, I guess, one of the coolest things that happened this year was we actually had guys coming to us for ideas on community service. And when you get that, you're like, okay, like, started out to where the guys hated it at first. They didn't like when the tornado came right through Franklin and they were out there picking up branches for 8 hours. But then after a while, guys are like, man, this is rewarding. And it not only feels good, like you turn around and you're like, okay, we're doing something. People are, and like we had people coming to our games that would have never been there, asking for schedules while we're out, coming to our games, asking how they can help us. So it was really rewarding for that, and seeing guys being like, hey, coach, like they're doing a Halloween trick-or-treating downtown. We should bring the team there. So of course we ended practice early and we headed down there. I wish the kid would have told me a little more than an hour before practice started, but we did it, because I mean, when guys took ownership of that, that was huge for us and really rewarding as a coaching staff to see that. And then another thing, like, to where I just didn't think guys were quite gelling the way that we needed to, especially once the season started. And for me, this was like, man, this might be dumb. I don't know what, but communication was off, especially between the guys. And we just did a human knot. Everybody's seen it. You might have done it in your classroom, or you might end up doing it in your classroom. But we actually did the little team building activity with the human knot. And believe it or not, like, that was super beneficial. And I mean, I think if we do it again, it'd probably be a little earlier in the year, mainly more as a like icebreaker type of thing. But it was beneficial, and it got guys to, I think, rather than us just being like, look, we have an issue here, we just said, this is what we're doing to start practice, and not a whole lot of instruction with it. And rather than being like, look, we need to improve communication, here's how we're going to do it. No, we just kind of threw it at them and let them roll with it. And I think it helped. Guys had good feedback for it. I mean, it's not something I would do every year, or often, but I thought it was beneficial for what we needed to do. But like I mentioned, I think community services was the biggest thing.
Absolutely. It's a lot of good stuff there, Nikki. Love it. I love it. I think listening to all you guys, I mean, I'm in the same exact boat. Same exact boat. I mean, I love what you're saying, Nick. You want guys that are willing to come to you rather than the other way around. And the only way to do that is like what Taylor was saying, and all three of you guys, the rest of you guys were saying, is creating trust. You know, creating trust with your players and showing them that you care. You know, if you want to kind of look from an end result back to the beginning, you know, we want our guys in terms of performance to be consistent. In order for them to be consistent, they have to be confident. In order for them to be confident, they have to be comfortable. And, you know, one of the ways that we did that here at Maine, my second year is, you know, we did a lot of family dinners with our team and, like you're saying, team building activities. But, you know, we took it a little bit further. And I started doing having lunch. So 30 days in a month, about 30 players on our team, you know, having lunch with a different guy each day, you know, and going, sitting down. If it was a guy that said, oh, I'm out of meal swipes, I don't have anything, be like, oh, well, eat something at home, bring something. Or if you want to just meet up and we'll just talk, we could do that too. But we made a point to just try and meet on a one-on-one or two-on-one basis. After we got past one-on-ones, then it was like, we're going to meet with a couple players and talk about things that have nothing to do with baseball. And the beauty I saw with that was, you know, from a playing standpoint, it's not number 7 that comes up and hits a home run. You know, that's my friend, that's my teammate, that's a guy that I'm pulling for. It almost feels as though you hit that home run. And I think we all know we know very well that the best teams are not transactional teams. You know, it's not, hey, I like you when you're doing well, you know, and maybe we've all seen those teams where, you know, we're really nice to the kid when he, you know, hits 450. But as soon as he starts hitting 220, I don't want to hang out with him anymore. You know, and I think that as a teammate, we need to treat everybody the way they deserve to be treated. And I know that's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true. If we want to be good, that we need to look at every single guy on our team and understand that we're in this together. We're all pushing the same rock. And that was some really good insight from you guys. I got better just by listening to you guys right then and there. So awesome. Thank you. To wrap this thing up, give me one thing. Okay, one thing when you're watching a player, either in practice, recruiting, wherever it might be, that shows that they know what they're doing, that they know the game, one aspect of the game, or just something that they do. Buck, get us started. What's one thing that when you watch somebody play, you can walk away with and say, I know that guy knows baseball?
I try to do my best to listen to what he is saying with his teammates. I try and stand close to the dugout at times, or try and get close to the field so I could hear, you know, if he's playing shortstop, what's his communication with the third baseman like? You know, I don't expect everybody to be locked in for every single second of a 7-inning game or whatever it might be. But, you know, if you're coming in to the dugout after an at-bat, you're like, oh, where are we dropping tonight? What are we dropping in Fortnite? Like, what are you guys doing? Can we get Chick-fil-A? Like, yo, we're in the middle of a game here. If you walk back in the dugout, you're like, hey, watch that. His breaking ball is pretty good. It's got a little bit of depth. It's late. Like, oh, wow. Like, that's light bulbs are going off in my head. Wow, this kid, he's got some feel. All right, now we're working with something here. Even if he's not the most gifted player on the field, if he's got that kind of attitude and he's having those kinds of conversations, he's going to get a star next to his name in my book.
I love it. I love it. That's great stuff. I totally agree. Doc, what do you got? Yeah,
I mean, hit the nail on the head right there, Sean. I mean, that's great stuff. And, you know, I guess one thing that sticks out to me, you know, Maddie is Sam Economy, a kid from Maine, you know, that I saw up there last summer at team camp. You know, obviously when we're watching, we know guys who can play. We know if they have ability, you know, just by the way they run or throw or showcase themselves at a tryout or whatever it may be. And, you know, like Sean said, I see this kid last year up at camp and started asking Matt, you know, Coach Marsh, and, hey, what do you got on this kid? You know, he's a Maine kid and really good kid, you know, knows the game. So, like Sean said, I start listening a little bit in the dugout, start watching how he acts with guys that he doesn't even know. This is a prospect camp with maybe 60 plus kids, maybe more. And he's interacting with guys that are from New York, from wherever. So you see how they react with other guys. You see how they play the game. Do they run on and off the field? Like you said, listening to what they say about the game, what this pitcher's throwing, and how they are. And then you start maybe, talking some small talk to them. And like I said, I brought up Sam Economy, a kid from Maine, and that's something that I did with him. Really liked the way he swung. He showcased well. Was looking for an outfielder for us here at Clarion, and did some research and fell in love with the kid. And we got him on campus and ended up committing. But just going back to it, just from a standpoint, you got to find your what works best for us as a coach. What we're looking for and what fits our culture. All 5 of us have different cultures, different atmospheres. We're all in different parts of the country, and that kid might not fit at Albright or Bridgewater or, and stuff like that. So I think understanding what they're looking for too, goes a long way.
Awesome. Nikki, go ahead, and then we'll go to the Big Moose to bring us home.
For me, the easy answer is to say the guy thinks the next play ahead, or at least has an understanding of what would happen if X, Y, Z happens, or at least what would happen if X happens. So being able to kind of think a play ahead and then reacting to the actual play would be my easy answer. But then just like has been mentioned already, is just the intangibles. I mean, kind of being able to control literally anything that you can, such as hustling on the field, hustling off the field. And I did like what Buck said, because it's something that as a recruiting coordinator, I've done a lot more of since the first day that I started recruiting, is listening to what guys are saying and what they're talking about to their teammates. And on top of that, just literally watching what they're doing in the dugout. Especially when you're at these, I think it's really, really crucial when you're at these events where you're not with your typical team. So such as going to a prospect camp, it's really interesting to see how these guys are in the dugout. Are they the guy that just kind of goes and sits by himself and doesn't really talk much, which is perfectly fine. I mean, that's not saying anything bad about a kid, because personalities are going to be different. But at the same time, and I'm not saying to be Johnny Rah-Rah by any means, but it's interesting for me to just kind of see how different kids handle themselves at those events, especially, but more importantly, when you're with your team. And like Doc just mentioned, we're all recruiting to our culture. So for me, I can only speak on what matters for us, but we're not trying to bring guys in here that aren't going to mold or aren't going to fit and at least be able to mold to what we want here at camp. So like I said, for me, it's just being able to kind of think ahead a little bit and understand what has to happen if certain things come about during a play.
Awesome. Moose, bring us home. What do you got?
Well, I got one that I think will get a chuckle out of us coaches, and then I'll dive in. But I think the thing number one that'll get you crossed off the list is if you jog back to the dugout after striking out. And, if you strike out too much, we're probably going to stop recruiting anyway. But if you do that rare time you do it and don't jog back. You got to walk back, have a little swag and presence about yourself. That's what's for you. But no, building on what these guys have said, one of the important things about our job is you don't just go see a kid once. You try and see him multiple times and multiple. Ideally, you see him in the showcase setting. You see him at a team camp where he's playing on a team, and then maybe you catch him in high school, just to see how he interacts with different groups of guys. And there's there's no ABC list of characteristics, that you cross off. Because like Nick said, some guys may go sit in the corner and then that's their MO. And some guys are, the class clown on the top step of the dugout. All guys are different. But at the same time, I think all of us can say confidently, like, when a kid's not engaged or when he's a me guy, and that just comes with the experience of doing it a lot. So to me, that's the biggest thing. How does he interact with his teammates and with the situation? And the one that drives me insane is the guy that's 0 for 3, but he's hit 3 missiles right at people. Like, are you really pouting? Are you that selfish because the ball didn't fall in? But to me, the coach that's recruiting you, man, you've hit 3 on the screws today. So why are you pouting? You've done everything in your power to catch my eye. The only thing that's going to turn me off is if you're sulking over in the corner, or sulking when you go out to your position. So that's the biggest thing. How do guys interact? How do they handle the ebbs and flows of the game? Because quite honestly, for hitters at least, if we're good, we're failing 70% of the time. So you better get comfortable with it, and you better learn how to evaluate yourself, not just getting base hits. You better be just as happy with the line drive right at the guy as you are with the bleeder that falls in, because you're not always going to have things go your way.
Mm-hmm. If you're listening to this right now and you're a player, you just heard 4 coaches talk about looking at the bench for understanding if a kid knows the game, and listening to your conversations on the bench. And what that tells you right then and there, if you're a player right now, that your actions on the field, in the dugout, off the field, all matter. And they're noticed by coaches when they're going through the recruiting process. They're noticed by coaches when we're determining who's going to play and who's not going to play. Back when I was coaching high school baseball, I used to, tell our guys that the guys on the bench that are sitting down on the bench are the guys that are telling me that they don't want to play. The guys that are on the railing that are coming out to high five guys are the guys that are telling me that they're engaged in the game and they want to play. So I think that is so important. I was going to go a different route with this one. I was going to talk about base running, and how when you run the bases, you can show intelligence. And I think that's great. Also looking at, those that are independent of the coaching staff. So what I mean by that is those that are willing to move positions without somebody telling them, those that are willing to make a read on a ball in the outfield and not look for the third base coach when it's a ball in front of them. Those that are willing to do those types of things show right away that they have feel for the game and that they've studied the game. And the best way to learn from the game, we were talking about this in our last podcast a couple hours ago, is by watching some of the best that do it and attending things like this and just looking for every opportunity you have to grow. So with that, I'd like to kind of start to wrap this up a little bit and say thank you to you 4 guys for spending your night with us tonight. A whole lot of information, a whole lot of content. We're going to just go really quick Q&A. If you're still on this, thank you for hanging on and spending your Wednesday night with us. If you got a quick question, it could be about anything. We'll answer it as efficiently as possible. And thank you guys so much for going on. I'll give you guys a minute or so to throw a question in the chat if you got any. For those of you that might be interested, we got a catching podcast tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Buck's going to be back on again. Doc's going to be back on again. And Mr. Nick Love, Mr. Taylor Davis, we're definitely going to have to get you guys back on again on one of these things because I just love talking to you guys. So selfishly, I want you back on for me to learn and grow a little bit more.
I think we ought to get the big wheel Tim Neiman on to elaborate more on the things that'll get you crossed off, because that's a podcast in itself.
We might have to get him back on. I mean, the guy the guy's got some lines and he's been around a little bit. Obviously, but yeah, definitely to get him on.
Thank you, Adam. Give another minute or two. All right, I think we are all set. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time tonight and for all those that stayed on tonight for the hour and a half that we had this going on. Thank you for your time. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you need any of our contact information, if you'd like to follow up with questions, you think of something tomorrow, next week, next month, whatever it might be, reach out to me and I'd be happy to provide you with any one of our panelists' information and getting in touch with them. Gentlemen, thanks again for coming on. Have a good
Appreciate
night.
it, Marsh.
Maddie, thanks for having us on, man.
Yeah,
Thanks,
man.
guys.
Appreciate it, buddy.
You.